to Supernatural Tales from Mammal's Front Porch, the podcast where ghost stories aren't just campfire tales, they're family tradition. I'm Heather Perrin, author, lover of haunted history, believer in the unexplained, and your host for this storytelling journey into eerie folklore, fictional frights, and true paranormal encounters from around the United States. Each week, I'll be sharing tales that are a little strange, a little spine-tingling, and maybe, just maybe, true. So grab a mason jar of sweet tea, pull up a chair, and settle in. Because here on Mammal's Front Porch, we believe the veil is just a little thinner when the sun goes down, and the stories, well, they have a way of finding you. Welcome back to Supernatural Tales from Mammal's Front Porch. I'm Heather, and today we're stepping into one of Indiana's most haunted historical places, the Randolph County Asylum. Over the years, it's gone by a lot of names: the infirmary, the poor farm, the county home. And each of those names tells you something about what it was and what it became. Because this wasn't just one kind of place. It was everything society didn't know how to handle. To really understand why this building feels the way it does, why so many people walk in and immediately feel like they're not alone, you have to understand what happened here. And maybe more importantly, what didn't. The asylum opened in 1899, but the idea behind it goes back much further. In the 1800s, especially across the Midwest, counties created what were called poor farms. On paper, they were meant to be compassionate, a solution, and a safety net. They were a place for people who had nowhere else to go. But in reality, they became something else. If you were elderly and couldn't work anymore, you were sent there. If you struggled with mental illness, you were sent there. If you were physically disabled, widowed, orphaned, addicted, grieving, or simply inconvenient to society, you guessed it, you were sent there. And once you arrived, you never left. The Randolph County Asylum was built to sustain itself. That meant the residents worked, farming the land, caring for animals, cooking, cleaning, maintaining the building. For some, that structure gave them purpose, a routine, a sense of contribution. But for others, it was simply overwhelming, because not everyone who lived there was capable of that kind of labor. Not everyone was well enough, physically or mentally, to keep up. And yet the expectation was still there. And then there were the ones who didn't come willingly, the ones dropped off by family members who promised to visit and, of course, never did. You can almost feel that part when you walk the halls, that quiet, aching sense of being left behind. The building itself is enormous. 3 full stories, long corridors that seem to stretch forever, high ceilings that make every sound echo just a little too much. When it first opened, it was considered modern. Humane even. But modern in 1899 didn't mean what we think it does today. It still meant overcrowding, and it meant limited funding. And it definitely meant a lack of understanding when it came to mental health. So you had people with completely different needs all living side by side. Someone battling schizophrenia in one room, an elderly farmer with dementia in the next. A woman escaping an abusive home just down the hall from a man trying to detox from alcohol. Children, yes, actual children, living in the same space as those who were dying. There was no real separation, no real specialization, just people trying to survive. And the staff, well, they did what they could. Some were deeply compassionate, the kind of people who truly wanted to help, even when the system made it nearly impossible to do so. Some were overwhelmed, stretched too thin, trying to manage more than any human should have to. And yes, some were cruel. Not always out of malice, sometimes just out of frustration, burnout, and lack of training. But the result was the same. Not everyone here was treated with dignity they deserved. Over time, hundreds of people died within these halls. Some passed peacefully, some didn't. Illness swept through, accidents happened, neglect took its toll, and sometimes it wasn't just physical suffering that ended a life, but emotional exhaustion, like loneliness and heartbreak. Many of those people were buried right there on the property, in graves that weren't marked, with records that weren't really kept all that carefully. There are names that slowly disappeared, and that's the part that seems to linger, because being forgotten is its own kind of tragedy. Today, when people visit the asylum, they almost all say the same thing, even if they don't believe in the paranormal. There's a feeling that's not exactly fear, at least not at first. It's more like walking into a room where someone has just been crying. You can't see it happen, but you can feel what's left behind. That emotional residue that hasn't had time or maybe hasn't been allowed to completely fade. The building feels like it's full. Not crowded exactly, but still occupied. Like someone is always just out of sight right in front of you. And the third floor is one of the most active areas. This is where many of the long-term residents stayed, people who had nowhere else to go and no expectation of ever leaving. Visitors talk about hearing footsteps pacing the hallway when no one else is there. Slow, measured, back and forth, like someone who's walked that same path 1,000 times. Doors open and close on their own. Whispers drift through the air, not loud enough to understand, just enough to make you stop and listen. Then there's the woman. People describe her standing at the end of the hall, dressed in something long and simple, just staring. Not at anything in particular, just staring forward, standing still, until she just simply isn't there anymore. There's a story about a resident named Mary. She was older, often confused, and known for wandering at night. Staff would find her standing in dark corners, humming softly to herself, or sitting quietly, completely still, like she drifted somewhere far away in her mind. She passed away in her sleep in the early 1900s, but people still hear the humming, soft and almost comforting, until you realize that there's no one there that should be humming. Some say they've seen her too, sitting in a chair just like she used to, only to vanish the moment someone gets a little too close. Then there's the basement, and everything about it feels wrong. The air changes the second you reach the bottom of the stairs. It's colder, damp, and there's this weight that settles in your stomach, like your body is reacting before your mind can catch up. This space was used for storage and laundry, and sometimes, when the ground was too hard in the winter, to dig graves. It became a temporary place for the dead. People down there report being touched, grabbed, and have a feeling of being something brushing past them when there's nobody nearby. Footsteps follow them as well. Something sounds like it's dragging across the floor. And then there's the figure in the old boiler. They call him the man in the boiler room. No one knows exactly who he was. He might have been a worker or a resident assigned to tend the furnace, but whatever his story is, the energy around him is not welcoming. People describe an instant, overwhelming sense of fear, not the kind you think through, the kind your body just knows. Like you shouldn't be there, like you need to leave right this second. On the second floor, though, there's something a little softer, and that's a child. No one knows his name, or maybe they did, but they've forgotten it. There are no clear records tying him to any specific story, but people see him, a small figure darting across the hall, peeking around corners. Sometimes they hear laughter or the faint bounce of a ball. And every once in a while, someone feels a small hand slip into theirs, only to look down and realize they're completely alone. And that one, well, it hits a little differently, I would think, because it's not really fear, it's more like grief. Then there's the attic, and if the basement feels heavy, the attic feels very unsettled, restless even. The floorboards creak even when no one is moving. There are knocks in the walls, uneven and unpredictable. And more than one person has said they heard breathing, close enough to feel even when they knew they were alone. Some have also reported seeing a figure crouched in the corner, watching them. It didn't appear to be hiding, but it appeared to be waiting on something. And there is a story tied to that space as well. A man in the 1930s struggling with severe mental illness was too disruptive, they said, too difficult to manage. So he was isolated up there alone in the attic. Some say he spent hours rocking back and forth, muttering under his breath. Others say his cries echoed through the building at night, begging, pleading, demanding to be let out. And of course, he died there. And people believe that he never left and is still there. So when you step back and look at all of it, it's easy to focus on the hauntings, the footsteps, the voices, the figurines in the hallway. But what really makes this place feel the way it does isn't just death. It's the emotion of it all. This was a place where people came when life had already taken everything from them, where identities were stripped down to labels, where time stretched out endlessly and no clear future beyond those walls ever came for them. Some found moments of peace there, but many didn't. And that kind of emotional weight doesn't just disappear, it stays. It settles into the walls, into the very structure of the place. People who visit today, skeptics, historians, investigators, all often leave saying the same thing. It feels alive. Not in a warm, comforting way, but in a watchful one. Like the building remembers everything that had happened to it. Like the people inside it are still trying to be seen, to be heard, still trying to matter in some way. So if you ever find yourself standing in front of the Randolph County Asylum, take a moment before you walk in. Not out of fear, but out of respect, because this isn't just a haunted building. It's a place where thousands of people lived out the hardest chapters of their lives, where some found care and others were lost in the cracks of a system that didn't know how to help them. Their names may be gone, their graves may be unmarked, but they are not completely gone, not here. Thank you for sitting with me today on Supernatural Tales from Mammal's Front Porch. Next time, we're going to head over to Ohio to explore the Old Stone House, a place shaped by time, worn by history, and still carrying echoes of the lives that once filled it. Until then, thank you for spending time on the porch with me. If you liked today's episode, be sure to follow the show, leave a review, and tell a friend who loves a good spooky story. You can also find me on Facebook and TikTok at Supernatural Tales from Mammal's Front Porch for more updates, behind the scenes bits, and the occasional eerie extra. And if you'd like to support the podcast and get access to bonus content, sneak peeks, and more, come visit me over on Patreon. I'd love to have you join me on the front porch. All of these things will be linked in the show notes. Remember to keep your porch light on because you never know who or what might stop by.